Hello everyone, welcome to Michigan Man MTG, and today we're looking at Tuesday's previews from Marvel Spider-Man for Magic the Gathering. But before we dive in, remember to like and subscribe to get further content like this throughout Spider-Man preview season and beyond. So let's look at today's previews. So first we've got Spinneret and Spiderling for 1 red mana. You can legendary creature that's a spider human hero and is a 1/2, and whenever you attack with 2 or more spiders, put a +1/+1 counter on Spinneret and Spiderling. Whenever Spinneret and Spiderling deal 4 or more damage, exile the top card of your library until end of your next turn. You may play that card. So this, right now, in my mind, may be the best card from the set so far. It's 1 mana, and the requirements that you're going to need to meet is you're just attacking with two or more spiders, and then you're going to be adding a +1/+1 counter turn after turn to Spinneret and Spiderling, which over the course of 2 or 3 turns is going to get you to that point where you can deal that 4 damage. You can put a +1/+1 counter on it in a different way. Also, that would help to get to that 4 damage, and then you're going to be exiling cards every turn, and that's going to be really important in the current standard environment where red doesn't have a lot of card draw, but Spinneret can give red a tremendous amount of card draw under the right circumstances. So I'm excited to play with this card. I think this one might be, right now, the best card I've seen from the set. Next, we've got Spider Sense for 1 and a blue mana. You get an instant, and you get to counter target instant spell, sorcery spell, or triggered ability, and you can cast it for its web slinging cost of just 1 blue mana. You may cast this spell for just that 1 blue mana if you also return a tapped creature you control to its owner's hand. So kind of, I don't think this is going to be most of the time a 1 mana spell, but I think in certain circumstances where you only can leave up 1 mana and your opponent is going to be casting instants and sorceries, or there's a triggered ability that will matter in the game, then you have this available to you. So I think this is definitely a card that's going to see standard play. Next, we've got Arana, Heart of the Spider for 1, a red and a white mana. You get a legendary creature that's a spider human hero and is a 3/3. And whenever you attack, put a +1/+1 counter on target attacking creature. And this is a card that goes really well with Spinneret and Spiderling, where you cast that on turn 1, on turn 3 you cast this. When you attack, even if you don't have 2 spiders that are attacking at that point, well, you can put the +1/+1 counter on it that turn. And potentially, if everything goes right, if you are able to attack with an additional spider on turn 2 with it, or on turn 2 you play another spider, and on turn 3 you can attack with both, so you're going to make it 3 power potentially as early as turn 3. I think makes that combination an interesting one to see if it'll work in standard. And we know cards like this, where there's a triggered ability like this, where you attack, you get a +1/+1 counter. Those cards tend to do well in standard, so I'm assuming Arana is going to do that. And you also have this ability on it. Whenever a modified creature you control deals combat damage to a player, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So you're also getting potentially card draw with this. So I think those 2 cards in combination, Spinneret and Arana, look to be the start of a potentially either a Boros deck, or maybe we go 3 colors and add green in based on what we have seen so far from the set. So I'm excited to see how these cards play together. Next, we've got Scarlet Spider, Ben Riley. For 1, a red and a green mana, you legendary creature that's a spider human hero. He's a 4/3 with trample, and his web slinging ability is for a red and a green mana. You can cast him if you return a tapped creature to your hand, and then he also has Sensational Save. If Scarlet Spider was cast using web slinging, he enters with X +1/+1 counters on him, where X is the mana value of the return creature. So you play this on turn 3, you return a 2-drop from the battlefield to your hand. Now he's a 6/5 for 3 mana. are really for 2 mana. So I think this is potentially one of the potentially most busted cards from the set, especially if you're playing this late in the game and you can, get a 4 or 5 drop that you're returning to your hand. And the fact that he's got trample really makes me think that this is going to be a card that is a potential player in Standard. Next, we've got Lady Octopus, Inspired Inventor for a blue mana. You elect your creature that's a human scientist villain and is 0/3. And whenever you draw your first or second card each turn, put an Ingenuity counter on Lady Octopus. And you can tap Lady Octopus. And you may cast an artifact spell from your hand with mana value less than or equal to the number of Ingenuity counters on Lady Octopus without paying its mana cost. So I think this is a card that in our Artifacts Matter deck, and we do have a couple of those that are formed, one around Simulacrum Synthesizer and another one around Weapons Inventory. So I think those decks may want this as something, hey, you play this on turn 1, you start building Ingenuity counters on it, and then you're able to cast in the mid to late game an additional spell just by casting or by tapping Lady Octopus that you don't have to cast for any mana cost. And I think that makes this good enough to see Standard play. Next, we've got Parker Luck for 2 and a black mana. You get an enchantment. At the beginning of your end step, 2 target players each reveal the top card of their library. They each lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. Then they each put the card they revealed into their hand. So this is one of those kind of interesting designs. And we've seen cards like this in the past that give each player a card. Howling Mine comes to mind as kind of the first card that does this, where when you drew your card each turn, you would draw 2 instead. I'm not sure on this one because they lose life equal to the mana value of the card revealed by the other player. So I guess if you're playing this and you've got a deck that has a lot of high cost cards in it, then Parker Luck could be very good for you because you're going to reveal it, you get the card into your hand. So maybe, in some of the mill style decks, this would help out potentially a little bit because you'd be actually attacking their life total every turn in addition to trying to mill them out. So I think there might be a place for this in Standard, but my gut says it's probably not going to see much, if any, play. Next, we've got Cosmic Spiderman. For a mana of each color, you legend creature that's a spider human hero and is a 5/5 with flying, first strike, trample, lifelink, and haste. And at the beginning of combat on your turn, other spiders you control gain flying, first strike, trample, lifelink, haste until end of turn. So what Cosmic Spider is doing is supercharging your entire team. Now, the barrier to Cosmic Spider obviously is the 5 mana cost in different colors. Otherwise, it's a very powerful card. Now, probably this is meant for more commander-ish focus stuff, but I think if we do have a spider deck that is going all 5 colors, and because of the lands that we currently have in Standard, I can see an outside chance of that happening, and it looks like we're going to get a new Tri-Land cycle also with the Spider-Man set, or at least some Tri-Lands with the Spider-Man set, and we do have the ones from Tarkir as well that aren't seeing a lot of play, but I think there's adequate mana to accomplish this if you build your deck correctly. And if you do, then once you get Cosmic Spider-Man onto the field, I think it's pretty much game over for your opponent. Next, we've got Rocket-Powered Goblin Glider for 3 mana, unit equipment, and when this equipment enters, if it was cast from your graveyard, attach it to target creature you control. Equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has flying and haste. The equip cost is 2, and its mayhem cost is also 2. So again, this is another one of those cards that's designed to really utilize the mayhem ability on it. Hey, you're drawing and discarding cards, whether it's in blue or some other combination, and what you're trying to accomplish is You send this to the graveyard, you cast it for 2 mana, you attach it to something in play, it gains +2, it gets flying and haste. And under those circumstances, I think it's playable, because for 2 mana, those are great abilities. If you're having to hard cast it for 3 and then equip for 2, then it's really not all that desirable in my mind, but we'll have to see where it fits into Standard. Next, we've got Oscorp Industries. Okay, it's a land. This land enters tapped, and when this land enters from a graveyard, you lose 2 life, and it taps for blue, black, and red mana. So this is our first tricolored land from the set. My hope is we get a full cycle of these. Maybe they'll be in the color combinations that we didn't see in Tarkir. That would be great. So we'd have a full set of tri-lands available to us. But it also has Mayhem. So if you discard this and then you can play it from the graveyard, obviously for no mana, the downside of that is you lose 2 life, but I think that's more than worthwhile to get a tri-land onto the battlefield. Again, especially if you're playing this in a deck that is trying to utilize that Mayhem ability. Next, we've got Superior Spider-Man for 2, a blue, and a black mana. You get a legendary creature that's a spider human hero. He's a 4/4 with Mind Swap. You may have Superior Spider-Man enter as a copy of another creature card in your graveyard, except his name is Superior Spider-Man, and he's a 4/4 spider human hero, in addition to his other types. When you do, exile that card. So, very interesting card here. 4 mana, basically Superior Spider-Man becomes a copy of something in your graveyard. It's still a 4/4, so that's great. It still is a spider human hero, so that's also good for you. And the question is there going to be a deck that wants this? And right now, I don't think we have an answer to that. But the potential to copy stuff, I think, is interesting in Standard, so maybe a deck will want this. All right, let's move on to some of the lower rarity cards we got from the day. So the first is Spider UK for 3 and a white mana. You get a legendary creature that's a spider human hero. He's a 3/4. He has web slinging of 2 and a white mana. Okay, again, you spend 3 mana, you return a tapped creature to its owner's hands. And at the beginning of your end step, if 2 or more creatures enter the battlefield under your control this turn, you draw a card and gain 2 life. So I think good and limited, probably not good enough for Standard play. Next, we've got Ominous Asylum. Okay, it's a land that enters tap. It's going to provide black and or red mana. And for 4, you can tap it and surveil 1. So I think the nice surveil ability on there. But I think these are just tri-lands that are going to be really with the intent of making your mana easier to get in limited. Next, we've got Skyward Spider for hybrid white-blue mana and 2 of those. You get a spider human hero. And is a 2/2 with Ward 2. This creature has flying as long as it's modified. So if you attach equipment to it, an aura or a counter on it, it's modified and then it has flying. So I think for 2 mana with Ward 2, I think definitely a card that I would play in limited, and maybe you'd play it beyond that as well. Next, we have Chameleon, Master of Disguise for 3 and a blue mana. You get a legendary creature that's a human shapeshifter villain and is a 2/3. And you may have Chameleon enter as a copy of a creature you control, except his name is Chameleon, Master of Disguise. He also has Mayhem of 2 and a blue mana. So again, another one of those copy cards. And I think, again, if you're doing this for his Mayhem cost, probably okay in Standard. But my gut tells me it's probably not going to be good enough. Next, we've got Pumpkin Bombardment for a hybrid black or red mana. You get a sorcery. And as additional cost to cast this spell, discard a card or pay 2. Pumpkin Bombardment deals 3 damage to target creature. Limited card only. Next, we've got Craven Proud Predator for 1, a red and a green mana. You get a legendary creature, human warrior villain, with star for his power and 4 for the toughness. He has vigilance and top of the food chain. where Craven's power is equal to the greatest mana value among permanents you control. So as you play more expensive cards, so Craven, when he comes into play, is a 3/4, but if you play 4 or 5 mana creatures or something else, then Craven's power would be adjusted up from there. So maybe has an outside chance of some standard playability, but most likely we'll only see it in limited. Next, we've got Wraith, Vicious Vigilante, for 1, a white and a blue mana. You get a legendary creature that's a human detective hero, and as a 1/1 with double strike and fear gas, Wraith can't be blocked. So really powerful creature here potentially, especially if you can get something to modify it where you're putting +1 counters on it, or you're putting equipments or auras on it to get the power and toughness of Wraith up. So I think if you're able to do those kinds of things, then it might have some standard playability, but 3 mana is the thing that for a 1/1, that's the thing that concerns me, because it pretty much dies to anything. And because of that, probably going to see only limited play, but potentially in the right style of deck, it might have some playability in standard. Next, we've got Scarlet Spider Kane for a black and a red mana. You get a legendary creature that's a spider human hero, 2/1 with menace. And whenever Scarlet Spider enters, you may discard a card. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on him, and he has Mayhem for a hybrid black or red mana. So again, this is another one of those cards, if we do have a deck that's built around the Mayhem ability where we're discarding things regularly, we can discard these things and then replay them from the graveyard. Again, that's going to be a card that would fit into that style of deck. Next, we've got Professional Wrestler for 3 and a green mana. You get a human warrior performer, that's a 4/4. And whenever this creature enters the battlefield, create a treasure token, and this creature can't be blocked by more than 1 creature. So the nice thing here about this in limited, because this is where we'll see this played, is your opponent will have to block it with something very large if it wants to kill Professional Wrestler. And if they only have small chump blockers, well, then Professional Wrestler is just going to wipe one of those out every time they block with them, and eventually they're going to run out of stuff. So limited, I think it's fine. Won't see any standard play. Next, we've got Damage Control Crew for 3 and a green mana. You get a human citizen, that's a 3/3. And whenever this creature enters the battlefield, you get to choose 1. You get to choose Repair, which is return target creature with mana value 4 or greater from your graveyard to your hand, or impound, exile target artifact or enchantment. And I do like the flexibility on this card. Certainly will be good in limited, and maybe has an outside chance of seeing standard play if we have a lot of artifacts and enchantments, and this would fit in as a sideboard card. Alright, now we have Terrifying Team Up for 3 and a green mana. You get an instant. This spell costs 2 less to cast if you control a permanent with mana value 4 or greater. So potentially for 2 mana here. 1 or 2 target creatures you control get +1/+0 until the end of turn, and they each deal damage equal to their power to target creature an opponent controls. So limited playable. We've got a card that does this for 2 mana currently in standard that doesn't see any play. Alright, how about Supportive Parents for 2 and a green mana? You get a human citizen, that's a 3/3. And tap 2 untapped creatures you control, and you add 1 mana of any color. So limited playable, won't go beyond there. Now we've got our first artifact of our lower rarity cards, and that's Bagel and Schmear for a colorless mana. You get a food, and it has Share and Nosh on it. Share, for a white mana, you can tap it and sacrifice this artifact, put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature, draw a card, activate only as a sorcery. So for 2 mana, you're getting a +1/+1 counter, drawing a card. I mean, that's a decent rate, certainly in limited. Or you can choose the Noshide for 2. You can tap it and sacrifice this artifact to gain 3 life and draw a card. So I think the flexibility on this gives it playability definitely in limited, and maybe an outside fringe playability in standard. All right, next we've got Gallant Citizen for a hybrid green and white mana. And you'll pay 2 of those for a human citizen. That's a 1/1. When this creature enters the battlefield, you draw a card. And this is just the latest version of this. We've got several already in standard that do the exact same thing. 2 mana, play it, it's a 1/1, and you draw a card. So, yeah, outside chances of seeing some standard playability. I think actually more likely in a green deck than a white deck, because it would give green some card draw. Alright, so let's talk about lower rarity artifacts for the day. So our first is News Helicopter for 3 mana. Artifact creature that's a construct. It's a 1/1 with flying. And when this creature enters the battlefield, you get to create a 1/1 green and white human citizen creature token. Again, limited playable. We won't see it outside of that. Next, we've got Hot Dog Cart for 3 mana. Artifact, when this creature enters the battlefield, you get to create a food token. And then you can tap this to add 1 mana of any color. So this is our mana rock for the set. Playable in limited. Won't see any standard play. Alright, let's get on the subway with Subway Train for 2 mana. You get an artifact that's a vehicle. It's a 3/1. And when this vehicle enters the battlefield, you may pay a green mana. If you do, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle, and you can crew this for 2 mana. So again, that outside chance of getting a land for 3 mana, in limited, I think if you're playing a green deck, definitely a card I would consider to help mana ramp me in the game. Alright, next we've got Passenger Ferry for 3 mana. You get an artifact that's a vehicle, and it's a 4/3. And when this vehicle attacks, you may pay a blue mana. When you do, another target attacking creature can't be blocked this turn, and its crew cost is 2. So, I like this in limited because of that ability to say your creature can't block. So if you get this in your limited pool, I would definitely consider it, because being able to shut off their best blocker is actually a pretty good ability in limited. Alright, let's move on to Spider-Mobile for 3 mana. You get an artifact that's a vehicle and a 3/3 with trample. And whenever this vehicle attacks or blocks, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each spider you control. And it crews for 2. So obviously limited playable, probably doesn't see play outside of that, because it's, to me, not good enough for standard, simply because it would have to go into a spider deck. Otherwise, it's just a generic 3/3 for 3 that you have to crew for 2. And our last card of the day is Vibrant Cityscape. It's a land. You can tap it, sacrifice this land, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So this is our Evolving Wild of the set. And this is interesting that we're getting another one of these, because right now we have 3 cards that do this in standard. So this is going to give us 4. So I wonder if our Tifa Lockhart deck would utilize this as well as another card that they can bring in to ramp into more activations of the landfall ability in that deck. Alright, so those are Tuesday's previews from Spider-Man. Tell me what you think in the comments. I think we got some really interesting cards today. I think Spinneret and Spiderling is probably the best card, but I do feel like several of the cards we previewed today are cards that are likely to see standard play. So thanks for staying to the end of the video, and I put links to a couple of my other preview videos here for you as well, and the whole library of Spider-Man videos that I've done so far. So thanks. I'll see you in the next one.